Hi there, my name is Gary McNally and I'm the Careers Relationship Manager for the School of Life Science and Education here at Staffordshire University. Today I'm going to be going through a few quick tips with you on how you can assure that you get the most out of your next step in your career journey and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So very quickly, the things that we're going to be covering in this session will be how right now your employment opportunities and your horizons are probably broader than you think they are. We're going to think about different ways that you can find work online, some options that you might not have thought about. We're going to be looking at tips on how, when you found these jobs, how you can apply for them more effectively. And then also thinking about interviews, some ideas that you can put into practice to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward in a job interview. We're also going to wrap up by just talking about some of the further support that might be available to you. So in terms of your horizons right now, this might sound corny, but these are some undeniable facts. Right now, you have more experience than you have ever had in your life. Right now, you have more skills than you have ever had in your life. So therefore, right now, you are more employable than you have ever been in your life. And your horizons are broader than they've ever been in your life. You could use this opportunity as a time to diagonally promote into a higher paid, more senior position in another organization within the same industry. Or you could change industry entirely, find maybe a job that's more rewarding. You could do any number of things. And the important thing is to keep an open mind. Think about the transferable skills that you've developed over the years and how they can help you in pretty much any role that you might be interested in. So in terms of where to find work, the most famous website that people talk about all the time is indeed.co.uk, and it indeed is a very successful website. It has more jobs advertised on it than any other website in the United Kingdom. But what you might find is that if you're trying to find a job that has a higher threshold in terms of skills, qualifications and experience, that you might actually find more success looking at Reed, Monster and CV Library. Now there is some massive overlap on there, but having worked in recruitment myself, I can tell you that if I was looking for someone with a specific skill, I would be looking at Reed, because I'll tell you from the other side, of the recruitment side, Reed, Monster, CV Library allow me to much more easily find you as a skilled worker than Indeed does. So by all means look at all of them, but it seems in my experience people tend to focus too much on Indeed and ignore the others sometimes. So please do think about looking at the other websites as well. So in terms of the public sector, there are two main job websites that I would recommend looking at: the NHS job site and the civil service job site. Now you might be looking at them and thinking, the NHS, I'm not a nurse or a doctor, but the NHS is absolutely massive. And they need the same kinds of workers that any large organisation would need. They have accountants, they have administrators, they have cleaners, they have crash workers, marketing people, everything. And it's the same with the civil service. Now the civil service includes everything from the health and safety executive through to revenues and customs and the tax office and the police, everything. And all of those organisations need all sorts of different roles. And so with both of these websites, I would recommend regularly just looking through the jobs that are available in your area and thinking about whether or not you could apply for them. These two employers in particular are very good at looking at the skills that you have as well, rather than the experience. So don't be put off by a job title that looks like it's completely out of reach. If you can convince them that you have the skills to do the job from experience elsewhere, then they might give you the job. Local authorities and councils, there are too many councils to be able to list. But I would recommend thinking about not just the council for where you live, but anywhere that's within commutable distance. With all of these websites, it's very important as well, like any market, the job market changes regularly. So one day you go down to the local market and there's a guy selling CD players, the next day he's selling leather jackets. It's the same with the labour market. It changes every day. So you might go on these websites and not find anything. But if you go back the next day, you never know, you might have your dream job there. So in terms of applying for jobs, I see two strategies. One of them is effective and one of them is not, summed up in these sentences. I sent 50 applications this week and I didn't hear anything back. Versus, I worked on 5 applications this week and I have an interview next Friday. If you are sending 50 applications a week, you are sending too many applications and you can't be putting the effort in needed. As someone who's worked in recruitment, I will tell you right now, if I've got 100 applications for one of my positions, am I going to spend any time reading something that I can tell within the first 3 seconds of reading the covering letter is not written specifically for this job? No. Your application needs to appear as if your entire life has led up to that application. So it's easier than it sounds. Just tweak the application, rewrite the covering letter and tweak the CV to reflect the skills that the job is asking for. Yes, it takes more time, but you'll have more success if you send out fewer higher quality applications like that. So applications, CVs and covering letters are still very common these days. All of the websites that I mentioned previously, such as Indeed, Monster, Reed, CV Library, etc., the vast majority of the jobs that they advertise for will have a requirement for CVs and covering letters. So it's important to have an up-to-date CV so that you can tweak it for applications. Now, there's no one-size-fits-all template that you can use for CVs, but there are some guiding principles. Number one, keep a consistent format. If you use date, job, company, then use that exact same format all the way through the entire CV. Also, it's reverse chronological order. So I'm more interested in what you did most recently, not what you did when you first left school. So with education and with work experience, start with most recent and work backwards from there. Now, it should also be no more than 2 pages long. I don't care how long you've worked for or how many degrees you have, you can always fit your CV on 2 pages. Also, make sure that right up at the top of the CV, you have a skills section where you have lists of the skills that you have. Basically, it's bullet point lists. In a little tip is if you have them in 2 columns, you save space rather than a big long one. But what this means is that when an employer looks at your CV, they can immediately see the skills that you have. And basically, at the last point there, your CV should be tweaked for every application. That's where you can do the tweaking. You look at the job advert, you look at the person spec, you see the skills they want. If you've got those skills, put them in the skills section. Spoon feed back to them what they want from their job advert. So covering letters, sometimes people get a little bit scared of these. They're not as scary as they might seem. Always rewrite the covering letter. People can see immediately if you've got a generic covering letter and they don't like it and they might ignore your application. It's usually less than a page. It's very rarely more than 2. There's a basic structure that you can follow to make sure that the body of your covering letter is strong. So you start by writing what you're writing about. I am writing regarding your job as administrator or as whatever. The next section, you'd write what you know about the company and the job. Show that you understand them as an organization and that you understand the role that you're applying for. The next section, number 3, is the biggest one. It's how your skills and experience mean that you can help them do what they do in this role. And the 4th section is really easy, when you're available for interview. So interviews, it sounds simple, but people do get this wrong sometimes. Dress smart, wear a tie in an interview. It's always easier to take a tie off if you're overdressed than it is to put one on if you didn't bring one. So always dress smart where possible, and give examples when answering questions. If someone says, "Do you understand customer service?" don't just say, "No, yeah, I do." Say, "Yes, when I worked at such and such." Give an example of you giving good customer service. It makes them imagine you doing the job, and that can only be a good thing. I'd also recommend trying to structure your interview responses in star formats where possible. It's beyond the scope of this session to explain in depth what a star structure is and how to do them, but this gives you an idea of how you structure your responses to put your best foot forward in an interview. In the end slide, there is a link to a web page that explains it in more detail. In terms of further support, if you're a graduate from Staffordshire University is proud to offer lifetime career support to all of its graduates free of charge. If you're not a Staffordshire University graduate, you can receive some career support from the National Careers Service. I provided an email address on the screen. They can be contacted via phone as well. Make sure to engage with your job centre locally. It's not just about the money that you might be entitled to. They have a range of bespoke support offers available to people who are in need of additional support to help find work. And they're also aware of the jobs that are coming onto the market, sometimes before they're out on the job sites. Also, speak to friends and family and colleagues and previous colleagues, any connections about jobs that they might know that be coming up. I've seen a stat before that 70% of jobs that are filled don't actually make it to the labour market because friends hire friends, colleagues hire colleagues, and it's informally done that way. That can be a very useful way to finding work. Also, get people to look over your job applications if it's careers professionals or even just someone that you know and trust. A second set of eyes never goes amiss. Make sure to practice interviews with people that you know beforehand so that you're not going in dry. You've had some practice with your questions and you know what you're going to say. So in summary, keep your options open. You are never more employable than you are right now. Regularly check the range of websites, not just Indeed, and tweak your CV, rewrite your covering letter every time you apply for a job, and dress smart for interviews. Research star responses and practice them. Reach out to further support and remember that you are never alone in this. There's always people there that are out there to help you. I've put some useful links here for some great resources, some of the support services, some of the sites, as well as that article that I do recommend people look at around like STAR and competency interview tips. If you do need any support, please do reach out. If you're a Stafford University graduate, please reach out to us directly. We will be able to help. Thank you very much for your time and the best of luck with your career.